welcome back. In this video I set up the final float level on the carbs and do some pre-work to get the frame ready for final painting. So if you haven't seen my earlier videos on the Carby clean and assembly, check those out. But this is the last step, is just setting up the floats. So to do that, you remove all bowls, and you've also got to remove the gaskets. And once you've done that, the book states there's actually two levels you need to look at. One is the wet level, the fuel level, and one is the float level. Generally what you do is you look at the float level. So it's 17.5 plus or minus half a mil. So to do that, it's pretty simple. Take the gasket off, get a vernier preferably, or a ruler, position it right where I'm showing at the bottom of that flange to the tip of the float, and that should be 17.5 mil. So in this case it's about 14. So I need to bend that tab down there just to lift the floats up, and you progressively just bend this tab gently up or down until you get the right measurement. So just measuring again here, and I'll do this probably 2 or 3 times, and you need to get it within half a mil, so somewhere between 18 and 17. So at this point 17.7, which is within spec, but I'm just reducing it just slightly to get it a bit closer. And I just do it one last time on this one, and I'll get 17.42, which is good. Now it's that simple. You just repeat this process on all 4, and then once you've done that, put the bowls back on, put all the screws back in, and then what you need to do is mount the Carbies like this, so they're perfectly level. So I do it between 2 bits of RHS, but you could do it a few different ways. This is what I find works. And put a level on it, and you can see here that's exactly level. Now once you've done that, you need to fill the Carbies with fuel. So I'm just using a few bits I've got laying around. It doesn't take much fuel. I'm using a fuel filter because I don't want to put any junk into these nice clean Carbies. And there's 2 things we're looking for here. So you fill it up. We want to check that the wet levels are correct, and you want to set it there for a while to make sure that the valves, the inlet valves, are not passing. So there's a screw on the bottom of each bowl, and you just open that, and what it does, you can see it here, releases fuel out, fills back up, and it will equalize to show the actual level inside the bowl. So do this on all of them. The level needs to be 3 millimeters below the bottom of the flange face of the actual Carby itself. So I'll just show you how we do this here. This is really just to check that you've done the dry float measurements properly. And as I say, it's also checking that the valves don't pass. So you can see it there. From the top of that lip down to the fuel level is 3 millimeters. It's right on. And you're just checking that they're all the same, which in my case, there's no leaks, everything's holding really nice, and the levels are right where I want them to be. So that's pretty much it now. These Carbies are ready to go and ready for final assembly, and hopefully when I put this engine back in the bike and these Carbies on, it should actually start. There will be some fine tuning, but we'll go through that in a later video. Next step is I made this box up in the last video, and now I want to start looking at the electrics and where I'm going to mount everything. So there's two main units that I need to maintain from the old system, which is the rectifier and the ignition module. So the ignition module is here. I'm going to try to fit that just behind that box and the mudguard. And the idea is I just want it to be as neat as possible. So take the mudguard out, drill a couple of holes, and you know that fits in there nicely. And there's still some airflow around it, not that that's a big problem for the ignition module. Now you do need the rectifier there to be in a place where there's good airflow, and this is underneath the box, so that should be as good as any. Again, drill a couple of holes, bolt it in, and I've now got the 2 original components mounted, and they should be nice and tight, and you won't hardly see any of that. There's the mudguard just checking the fit. So that's worked out really good. I'm going to use the M Unit Blue, the motor gadget, and I thought about putting this on the top face somewhere, but in the end I think having it on the side here just by itself will actually fit well, look good, and will be in an easy place that I can access. So first thing I do is just tape it on, hold it pretty much where I want it to be, and then I'll put the side cover on and just check that it's actually going to clear. So it's a little bit hard to see, but if you look down there, there's probably about an inch clearance, so that's plenty, and I think that's as good a spot as any. So mount that up, and that is the main electrical components, and I'll do a separate video on how I wire up that motor gadget unit and then get it working to my phone and all the rest of it. One of the last things I need to do electrically is the battery and the starter solenoid. So I've chosen not to use the original solenoid, not for any reason other than I wanted to have one that's got a built-in fuse, so I bought this one here. Now it's square, and I'm really fitting a square peg in a round hole. But the original bracket here is round, it's rubber, it's actually quite soft, and it's in a good spot. So I took a bit of a chance, just carved it out a little bit, squeezed it in there, and you know what? That thing fit perfect. So I'm really happy with that. It's going nowhere, and it's in the original location, so I'll just wire that in with everything else when I get to it, and the battery will stay in its original spot. So just the rectifier here, just giving a quick sandblast. Then I do put a bit of clear coat on that. Not that it really matters, it's going to be where nobody will ever see, but I'll know it's there and I want it to be right. The swing arm and the frame is the next thing. I don't sandblast this down to metal, but just enough to clean it up properly. And then what I do is I finish off this mounting bracket for the exhaust and the rear master cylinder. So I'm just making this like I did in earlier videos. On the other side is just sheet metal with a strip going around the middle, so it looks like one solid piece of metal. And you know, a bit of heating, bit of bending, bit of TIG welding, and they come up really good, and it matches right identical to the other side. Once I've done that, I'll just mount it up properly so it's in its final position, and then I'll start thinking about the master cylinder. So the master cylinder here is off the XJ650. It matches the brake, and so it's all stock from that bike. I had to cut this bracket off and modify it, so just here I'm just trying to get it in the right spot. I've got one bolt in already at the top, plus this. Just tack it on, and then once I do that I check the movement, and I'm just trying to get the leverage right so that I have a good amount of fuel on that pedal. So with that done, the last thing I had to do was just mount that bottom bracket. So I just made my own bracket there, and once I had it in the right spot, I tack it and remove everything so I could put a decent weld there. So this is the frame pretty much done now. In the next video, what I need to do is just find some time to spray this frame. It's quite cold in Australia, so I need a nice day, and I just got to check that I haven't missed any welding, and then it'll be the exciting bit of actually putting this bike back together. So we're starting to get there, and there's still quite a bit to go, but stay tuned.